Okay, so here we are with a man whose name is on the screen, very admirably done so, Mr. Glenn Sanford, who is the founder, creator, and current CEO of eXp. Glenn, thank you for your time and thank you for joining today. I know you well. Firstly, thank you for being back involved at the level you are here within the company. And I know you have been doing the rounds of many interviews, insights, transparency being a core value of the company. One thing I wanted to ask today was in terms of the international global side of things, with just a few questions. In your own words, what was your original vision for EXP globally, internationally, both at the beginning and when we talk right now?
Yeah, it's pretty similar. The reality is that in in North America, U.S. and Canada specifically, uh, organized real estate is totally different than anywhere else in the world, and it's somewhat more organized primarily because of the MLS system, the multiple listing services, and so the ability for an agent or agency to set up shop and to be able to market inventory from any real estate firm that exists, and also to market through all the real estate firms through the MLS and all the portals. Um, so that really makes it a very seamless business, meaning that you can be at any brokerage and generally get the same set of services here, along with the same inventory. Internationally, that's not really the case. The reality is that it's much more fragmented, and those who have developed some, we'll call it market power from a brand perspective, to a large extent, take advantage of their agents through the fees and commission splits that they charge the agents. And so you can go to markets like the UK, where the average agent take on a commission is around 20-25% when you sort of factor in the way that they're paid. In most parts of the world, it's closer to about a 50-50 split, meaning the agent gets 50, the house gets 50. And yet your top agents then, as a result, really have a limited amount of income that they're able to generate. And they're kind of squeezed on multiple different fronts in order to sort of build their own book of business. If they run afoul of the marketing policies of the office, they're essentially quashed back because it's not in the house's best interest to have agents well known as individuals in the marketplace, because that actually competes with their brand and actually hurts them for a number of different reasons. So I've heard a lot of these stories over the last few years. They were things that I suspected, but then when I actually talked to agents, it really was the reality. And so for me, I'm an agent at heart. I came up through the ranks as an agent, recognized the pain points of real estate here in North America, and then as we started to grow internationally, recognized that if we could take this model internationally, we could actually put agents into the driver's seat into growing a new model, which is obviously great for agents. But eventually, we think that it actually translates really well for consumers as well, because as we actually sort of change the market dynamics, we can create more internal exposure over a larger number of agents. We can actually do some creative marketing things. We're not dependent on some of the very expensive portals. If you're a consumer, if you're working with an agent, they are, or the brokerage firm or some capacity, are paying a lot of money to third-party portals that are, for all intents and purposes, the toll, because of the fact that there is no cooperation among brokerages. And so the toll is you pay the portal and stay fragmented, and it's actually in the best interests of the portals as well to kind of create this fragmentation, because if fragmentation no longer exists, then they don't have the market power that they have. So there's a lot of reasons why the status quo has been. And when I talk about international relative to North America, it's virtually every country around the world. This is not isolated to just a few countries. It's literally every country. Agents have the same fundamental dilemma around the world, which is that one, they're not normally allowed to brand or build their own book of business to a size that they could sort of step out and be independent. They effectively are on a commission split that is really good for the house, but not great for the agent. And there's no retirement in the business. And so there's no built-in way to scale what you're doing. So if something happens to you, you get hit by a bus, a family member gets sick, or any number of life events, you're both underpaid relative to what you should be getting paid while you're doing the work. But then on top of that, you have no system to actually support you after the fact. And so these are big challenges for real estate agents around the world. And that's why I think what we saw early on was just validated through many conversations over the years.
Very well said. And I'm really curious with when the introduction of eXp global infrastructure came into place just after Australia was launched through eXp. What was your vision of creating that? Was it a timing thing or was it strategy? Was it timing? Was it for just overall growth? What was your thought process behind the infrastructure?
Well, it was a little bit of a science experiment, meaning we didn't know if it, how it was going to work internationally, because, anytime a company expands on an international basis, they have certain assumptions. You look at a company like Purple Bricks, for instance, from the UK, they thought that their model would work all over the world. Turns out that it didn't. And in fact, I think it doesn't even work in the UK. So at the end of the day, but there's a lot of assumptions around does this model actually work? I know Keller Williams has struggled to grow internationally. I think they grew by about 3,000 agents internationally last year in total, and they much more mature, been around for a long time, still don't have a large number of agents. We're already larger in multiple countries around the world than they are. But that's because they were trying to shoehorn in a model from the US internationally. So they didn't have a way to adapt to the customs of a local market. And part of that's because of the challenge of a franchise system. For us, we're pretty adaptive. So we go in with a model that on paper looks competitive. And then we're really looking for local leaders who get it, because if they get it and they're truly sort of dialed in with the psyche of real estate professionals in their market, then in theory it should grow. And every market grows a different rate. UK's been awesome. South Africa has grown like crazy. France is doing well. Australia, of course, is doing well. We're doing a little bit of a reboot right now for New Zealand and some other countries. But what we're finding is that with the right leader, and that means you're sort of the managing broker of the office, or the person who sort of leads the operation side of the business, that's a really important component. They have to be an agent's agent, but they also need to understand the power of the compensation model that we design. Because if they don't understand that at a DNA level, they may go back to their more traditional roots of small office broker management, and versus empowering agents to grow businesses inside of the brokerage structure. And so there's leadership will turn over a little bit from time to time, but it's really finding the right leaders. And now we've got great leaders in Australia. I was just on with Ken Hobson and Emily Morgan yesterday. I think you talked to them as well in the last 48 hours or so.
Yes,
they'd reported. But talking to all these leaders, we're doing some cool stuff in Portugal. We're doing some, obviously Adam Day's been, and the whole team in the UK has been knocking it out of the park. But it's find the right leaders, the ones that get it. We only need 5 to 10% of the market to be home run in pretty much any country in the world. And my guess is there are 5 to 10% of the agents that will get the model, and probably more. And so it will naturally grow over time.
You know what? And I think you've honestly just answered the next question. So thank you for being forward thinking. 2022 was the first time that we, I guess, as a company have announced, how things are going on the international level, more so from the agent perspective. So there was a top 10 teams list, which obviously teams are not really started so much in Australia and they can't be a thing in the UK yet. But the individual agents who have sold from a volume standpoint, the most in the world. And the top 50 list comprised, I believe, of 39 guys and girls from the UK, 11 from Australia, which ironically enough was the first three territories that was created prior to global. So I was just curious, and I think you hit the nail on the head. I was going to say, why do you think that was? But I think maybe the leadership of Adam and the leadership of Emily is a large part of that.
Yeah, leadership and supporting of the agents to actually help them truly build businesses worth owning. That's a phrase that another company uses all the time. But at the same time, in most cases, the businesses that are structured in aren't worth owning to begin with. But the way we've kind of structured both the revenue share and the opportunity for teams to actually sort of be built up, we want to make it as agent centric as possible. One thing internationally, there's actually more flexibility in a lot of respects to actually build teams. We're highly regulated in the US and Canada, partially from maturity, but partially because a lot of the rules were designed 20, 30, 40 years ago, when the MLS and other things sort of became a thing. And so there became a more regulatory infrastructure. In most parts of the world, there isn't that regulatory infrastructure at that level. So there's actually more room for creativity and collaboration on the mortgage side, the closing side, some of the other services. And so agents really have a pretty open canvas internationally to think about how do they build this with strategic partners and others. It doesn't just need to be go out and list a property and sell a property. It could be, there's a lot of collaboration that can be done with partners that are part of the real estate transaction process.
Absolutely. Thank you. What's your take on the key elements to maintaining, obviously, what you and what the company has built a really stellar reputation of eXp as things continue to grow kind of outside of North America to maintain that reputation?
Continuing to look at the core local leadership, because that local leadership at the end of the day will make or break what takes place in the country. Now, agents can love the model, but if you don't have the right leadership infrastructure. So I keep on looking at who's the leader. So if you look at a press release we put out, I think Monday this week, we made some really interesting changes in Canada. John Sy, top 10 agent in all of Vancouver, Canada, is now the president of eXp Realty Canada. And we've got a couple other people sort of backing him up in that role. And for us, it's like, I'm super successful. You know this as a CEO of 87,000 agents. When you sent me a note, I sent you over a Calendly. You jumped on my calendar, and here we are. And I do that with individuals all over the world, always thinking about what's the core team, what do they need to be focused on? Are they focusing on it? Are they people that agents will rally behind, or are they just there for a job? And sometimes you don't know when you bring somebody on that they're just there for the paycheck and the job. But over time, you sort of figure it out, and then you find the people who really are passionate about it because they will show up. They'll let you know. They'll go, "I'm put me in, coach. I want to help grow this company."
Absolutely. And what was your personal biggest discovery for you upon eXp expanding outside of North America at the beginning and now to this point?
I didn't expect to be in 22 countries outside of North America at this point in time. Um, I think I've always, when we first started eXp, we were just thinking, US and maybe Canada. But now, doing more travel, we were just in the UK in December. I think later on this year, we're going to be in a number of countries, primarily in sort of Central, Southern Europe. I think that'll be in September. We're going to do some stuff probably later in the year, Australia, New Zealand. Not sure where from there because every place from there is a long way, but uh, but we'll definitely do some stuff there toward the end of the year. But want to get out and about to the various countries that we've been growing into, and just share, from my perspective, what this thing could mean for real estate agents. I was an agent working in a company that had what they refer to as a profit share model, and I would have been all in doing exactly what you're doing had the model worked.
Yeah.
And I say that if eXp had existed, that's where I would be. I wouldn't be doing what I'm doing here. It's such a better, I'll call it, life. If in your seat, I'm like 40, 50 hours a week, 60 hours a week. It's but from an agent perspective, it's a great place to sort of build your business.
100% seconded. And last thing, I promise, I'll give you an open floor. But are there any final thoughts you would like to just get in front of, some fellow top real estate agents really around the world who are out there who will be watching this? Any final thoughts to them directly?
Yeah, here's my thought. If you're good at what you do as an agent, estate agent, you likely have burnt out on the business. And what I mean by that is it takes a lot of work to be a top agent, but if you don't have a path beyond doing the same thing day in, day out, even though it might be a good paying job, it to some extent becomes less and less of an ideal occupation. When you actually start to think about actually mapping out your business as a business, going back to the drawing board and going, hey, what do I want the next 5 years of my real estate career to look like? Evaluate it, knowing there's an option inside of eXp that might help you get there faster. Dream big. Dream about what the potentials are and the possibilities are. In some cases, dreaming big means basically closing down shop and starting and doing something entirely new in order to achieve that. But I think the cool thing about eXp is you may not need to change what you're doing on a day-to-day basis to actually be able to have a track, a path, something that's already been mapped out that can help you get there and potentially even be bigger than what you're imagining. That's really the power of eXp. But the first thing is to think about your career as a business that you own, even if right now the business owns you. Think about it as a business that you own, and think about it as what are the investments, what are the changes in your business that need to take place in order for you to achieve the lifestyle that you ultimately aspire to live without as much of the stress to get there as probably goes on in your life to get there.
Very, very good points. I think on that note, Glenn, thank you for your openness and your transparency too. Thank you, sir.
Oh, you're welcome. Thanks, Barry.